Greetings. Today's Trade Blast focuses on something that is the 15-day SEC rule. And we thought you might find the information useful. We're in a place called Frankfort, Kentucky, and I believe this is the state capital. We're at the Hampton Inn here, and you'll catch a little bit of a view behind me, and hopefully our sound is adequate here today. So this is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks again for joining us. I want to thank you as a Patreon supporter for supporting us. You're getting this currently, and in a few days we're likely release this to the channel more broadly, but we wanted you to get the information first. So as you can see, this morning it's the 16th. We're pre-market at 8:30. Stock started off up at about 1,000 this morning, and then it moved up to the 105, then 110, then 115, and just before I went on, it was about 116. I just want to say, oh my gosh, what a move to go from a low of 900 on the 15th to 115 the next day is amazing. And it really shows what we talked about in our written trade blast yesterday about the fact that whenever there's a downturn in the market like that, all of the companies end up taking a hit, but particularly the high growth companies will end up taking the largest hit because of fear that a crash is occurring by the marketplace. So that said, we obviously saw a very bad day yesterday for the market, and it looks like the day is going to be better with the market up 500. The Nasdaq's up 127, and we also have Tesla up in the mix of this whole thing. So my general sense of today is I think it'll be a good day, and therefore I think it's a good day to make money. This follows a trend for Tesla where Mondays and Tuesdays tend to be pretty good days. Wednesday kind of sketchy, and then Thursday and Friday totally unknowns. So from a trading standpoint, it can be really nice to trade the beginning of the week and then skip the end of the week. I was talking with one of my trade friends today, and if you go back on a trend basis over the last, let's say, 2 months, that Monday and Tuesday trade has been great for Tesla, and then avoiding the end of the week has tended to be very profitable. So it might be something for you to consider as well. What I wanted to cover today as part of our trade blast, in general, I just think we're going to have a positive day for a number of reasons. We have a debate going. Is it going to end the day at 1050? Is it going to end the day in the 1020s? My feeling is saying early 1020s is where we end up for today. One of our largest traders is saying it just feels like the movement of the stock and the amount of demand there is pre-market suggests we may have a 1030 to 1050 close for today based on nature of volatility and how strong demand is for the stock pre-market. So we'll see what happens, but this is the general discussion we're having. I want to introduce a concept today that we've talked about before, and it's kind of something that's called the 15-day rule. What it is that 2 weeks before the end of the quarter is the cutoff date where companies that are going to miss earnings are required to announce that. So what we're talking about here or thinking about is the fact that if Tesla is not going to miss by the 15th, which was yesterday, if they're not going to miss for the quarter, that means they're going to make the number for the quarter. And if they make the number for the quarter, that's 4 quarters of profitability that results in them now being S&P qualified. And in theory, the impact of S&P on Tesla should be somewhere in that 10 to 15% increase or even 20% increase in the value of the stock, because there's so many more people that are required to own it regardless of the price of the stock. So I bring this up today because I think that we could end up, we'll do some more digging on the SEC rules of this, but I'm quite sure that this is actually a legitimate requirement by the SEC. And as we have a confirmation on this from our researchers, you might want to think about it playing in the back of your mind, because if Tesla delivers that numbers and they enter the S&P, it's a bonanza in terms of profitability for a lot of folks that own the stock, and hopefully that's you. So we wanted to sort of push this out there because it might influence now how you're trading the stock heading towards the end of the quarter, which ends at the end of this month, and then heading towards earnings as we get there on the 22nd. So we expect that this distance is going to be very, very volatile, hopefully profitably volatile for a lot of the holders of the stock like yourself and myself. You know, my thought process and recommendations I've been making to folks is, if you do trade options and you want to make money and be somewhat conservative, targeting the August or September calls with maybe a put or two to protect yourself on the downside is not a bad way to go. And the reason is that the entry into the S&P would be at the beginning or end of July, beginning of August. Obviously end of July, because we'll know the earnings number by the 22nd, and therefore the entry will already be known, and I think that occurs at the beginning of August if it happens. So by choosing a late August or September call, you now set yourself up to take advantage of that change, and profitably so. And you know, if you're looking at a $1,000 stock, a 20%-ish gain is about $1,200 a share. So stuff in that $1,100 to $1,200 range in terms of calls are not a bad way to go. And by going 1 or 2 months out, you're also avoiding some of the crazy volatility we've been seeing in the short term. I have to say that I'm totally amazed at sort of the market sentiment and the change of attitude that can occur, and how fast. I mean, we're looking at Shopify in a huge move yesterday because of its top in Walmart. We're looking at Melly, and we're looking at Tesla recovering 100 points in one day, because the fundamentals of why the stock is doing well during the downturn are still there. And what we're also seeing in the Tesla phenomenon currently is that as the stock moves up, there are these pullbacks that are buying opportunities typically, but instead of them being pullbacks that result in the stock having a huge fall, they're turning out to be pullbacks that allow sort of a consolidation and perhaps an opportunity to get in on the stock before it starts rising again. So, you know, we're in a very interesting zone here where you do have to protect yourself with some downside puts, or maybe a put straddle, but we're also in a zone where there's an opportunity, I think, to make a great deal of money if, in fact, you sort of manage the movements of the stock, movement of the options well. I have to say that, you know, when you look at, there's a bunch of stocks out there like Zoom or Boeing or some of these companies that have done extremely well in the short term. I've just been amazed at how crazy the markets have been. But I guess the one logic that I would argue that's still lurking is the fact that a lot of people have to make an assessment of who's going to come out of this environment well. And once they come out of the environment well, how does that affect their stock price, and how do they do relative to the market? I mean, in the case of Shopify, they do well because they're benefiting from COVID. There is a return, but the online presence still is a mandatory. When it comes to Tesla, you know, all the trends of move to electric are still there, and we have the semi coming out. So there's a large number of, you know, sort of, yeah, Tesla's doing well. They don't have huge competition that makes sense sitting there, and therefore they're killing it. I guess the one other thing I would throw in, and we'll cover this more at another show, is it's been interesting to watch the battle of competitors like VW to get their ID vehicle out, and they're talking about software problems, and it's strange to see them not just toss that software that's working for their Porsche electric Taycan into the ID and be done with it, because obviously software is working. Why not just have both companies used? Customers can't tell the difference because obviously they're hugely different vehicles. So sort of hiccups like this, and Tesla continuing to gain market share all around the globe from satisfied customers, really implies that they're one of the winners of this COVID environment. And so therefore, it's a great investment, great idea to consider. So again, 15-day rule looks like it's playing out in terms of the market recognizing that Tesla is going to get the number needed for the S&P. We'll see how this plays out over the next couple of weeks, and we'll do some more research to dig up on it, but it's something that you might want to consider. We also want to say that, S&P decision is made end of July. I would say consider August or September calls as a way to get beyond that time point and allow it to occur, and then stay away from all the crazy volatility that we're seeing in the short term. We also want to say, hey, we look forward to your comments and suggestions on story ideas that are attached to our trade blasts. I think today looks like a solid, positive day. Our usual process on trades is kind of trade and be overnight on Mondays and Tuesdays, but forget about Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because if you're trading in week, there's no time for recovery if things go badly. So I think that would be the other suggestion that we'd make. At any rate, want to thank you again for joining us. Don't forget 25 leg lifts if possible each morning. Once a week, fried foods maximum. Try to go to bed at the same time and wake up same time every day. Also wanted to encourage you to consider a 5-2 or some other diet in that frame. We're in a place called Franklin, Kentucky, or Frankfort, Kentucky, and we're going to show you some video here. There are a number of bourbon distilleries here, and we may have to support your success in the future, go sample them so that we can give them our blessings so you wouldn't be sickened by having to drink that good bourbon. So if you have any suggestions or places for us to check out, let us know. Thanks and have a great day. A little view from our hotel prior to This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Have a great day. Bye for now. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to our next conversation.